All right, Dave, how are you doing? This is great to reconnect. We talked back in 2014 when we did your early entrepreneur journey story. So let's catch up.
Yeah, well, it's been an exciting 6 years. Certainly a lot to talk about.
Tell me what happened in the time frame in the last 6 years, highlighting what major inflection points happened, what major strategic changes happened, and we'll take it from there.
Well, I think that when we spoke last, I think I was talking a lot about the importance of making a profitable subscription-based business that just grows steadily year after year. And I think that we just really stuck with that. I think that from the start, we've always aimed at making Expensify a self-sufficient, direct acquisition sort of subscription model sort of business that just grows steadily over time, and that provides an incredibly stable place for attracting the best talents, retaining them indefinitely, and just going off and doing great things. And so I think we've really held true to that initial vision and really sort of doubled down on it. And so from one perspective, you could say actually very little has changed in that the business is, we're just kind of a better version of the thing we were in 2014. We just have more experience doing it. We have a stronger team that understands our principles and our best practices, and we're really devoted to them. So kind of on one side, I would say from like a business perspective, very little has changed actually. I mean, we're more profitable in all of this. We're just better. I'd say from kind of a market perspective, it's been interesting because when we started off, we were very, very small, and so the tactics that work as a very small company don't necessarily scale to be a very big company. And by that I mean something like customer acquisition. So for example, we have this very steady stream of signups from the very start because of our sort of mobile-first acquisition model. Everything starts basically with individual users downloading the mobile app for free, not asking permission, just starting to use us, and then pulling us into the organization. And then over time, the more you use us in the company, your company just gradually adopts. And so it's this word-of-mouth, zero marginal cost user acquisition model. And that's worked really great, and it's still the business model we have right now. But initially, it was very driven by this mobile funnel, and then we kind of went to a conference funnel for a while. And now it's really just around kind of like this viral K-factor and word of mouth. And so I'd say the business model, it's fundamentally the same under the hood, except kind of the source of leads has sort of like shifted over time. And as we've expanded out into the marketplace, now we can support the biggest companies and the smallest companies and all of this, but the company itself is pretty much the same. So I don't know. It's interesting. Everything's bigger, everything's better, but on one hand, it's just kind of just more of the same.
That's great. So one question, if I remember correctly, you had told me when you were in the early days that you kind of acquire customers in a B2C mode, even in larger companies, let some groundswell happen and then go do enterprise deals. Is that still the case? Am I remembering this correctly?
Yeah, you get it right. I would say a difference is the word enterprise is kind of ambiguous. And when people start using that word, it kind of implies that there's this moment where the company is like, okay, let's get serious. We're going to have a procurement team reach out to one of our salespeople, negotiate a contract, that kind of thing. But that doesn't really happen. Nearly none of our customers go through a sales process like that. Almost no one is on any sort of like custom contract or an invoicing. Virtually all of our customers, like 90% plus of our revenue, just comes from credit card. A company just basically self-service adopts, puts on the credit card, and uses us. And though we do have salespeople you can talk to and so forth, really our most effective sales channel is our customer support tool. Like I would say a big product change we've had since 2014 is really just perfecting the self-service funnel. And so we have this chat agent called Concierge, which is behind the scenes. It's this huge multi-tiered AI-supported sort of globally distributed work group. But to you, it just seems like a consistent personality that you can talk to 24/7 about literally anything involving expense management, Expensify, any of the tools we integrate with, and so forth. And so we found that way more important than having some kind of like classic sales contract sort of approach is just having the absolute best customer support possible. Like every single, when you chat with us, you get a response within, I think it's something like 80% of our conversations are responded to in under 2 minutes. And we worked very hard to get a very fast and consistent support experience because we know that self-service is the future of this. It's not really about enterprise sales.
So you are doing a B2C SaaS business. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, I guess you could. I mean, we blur a lot of these lines. So we have millions and millions of users, and numerically speaking, probably most of them actually don't use us inside of any corporate environment. It's basically just individuals using us to track their personal savings, to manage their college expenses, or they go traveling with people. They want to track expenses and things like this. And so the bulk of our user base actually is a true consumer, just using us for free. And then our consumer user base basically pulls us into a company. It's like, hey, I use this for myself. We should use it in my company. And they start using us inside of the company for free. And then eventually the company basically says, hey, this is a cool tool. I wonder if it can do more advanced things. Can I have additional controls and reimburse through the system and all these other sort of features? And we say, yeah, it's super cheap. It's like $5 a month per employee. And yeah, so then you can do all this other powerful stuff with it. And so it's a consumer tool that basically uses that to engage with companies, and then the companies themselves just self-service to adopt for more advanced functionality.
Now, what is the number one use case? Is it not expense reporting?
Well, I guess, again, it's a question of how you view that. If you're saying what generates our revenue, well, then it's expense management. So basically, because the consumer functionality is just free. Like you can scan receipts, you can track your expenses.
I'm asking about revenue. What generates the revenue?
Yeah. From a business perspective, it's a business is paying to adopt us to manage the expenses. And so that would be, for example, configuring an expense policy that specifies your travel rules. We have a built-in travel feature, so you can just ask this concierge agent to do all of your travel booking, and that's just kind of built in for free. Or rather, it's one of the paid features that comes when a business adopts, if you will. And so there's a number of kind of business-centric functionality that companies will upgrade to get, but it's all around the range of managing company expenses.
And there, your primary competitor is Concur?
Yeah, I would say, yes, in the sense that they are certainly the most classic expense management tool out there, but they're very limited to they're the classic enterprise player. In fact, everyone else in the marketplace is kind of a very classic enterprise player. And so, yes, they're competitive in the sense that they offer the same functionality, and every once in a while we'll encounter them in the marketplace. But we find that actually our method of acquiring customers acquires a completely different set of customers than they do, because they're acquiring through advertising and talking to the CFO and things like this, and so they're getting one set of customers. We're acquiring through individual employees, just kind of promoting us to their company, and so the overwhelming majority of our customers are completely unaware of any of our competition. It's not like they did a competitive analysis; they just never even thought to check. And so, yes, they're competitors kind of on paper. In practice, we're just in completely different worlds.
Mm-hmm. And what has changed in the market in the last 6 years? What are the big trends that are affecting your business?
Well, I would say there's been kind of a collapse of the conference industry. For a while, there were a whole bunch of sort of accounting conferences that everyone would show up to and pitch and things like this. And that's just kind of all fell apart. I would say there's probably a number of reasons for this. I think Intuit has taken more of an interest in. Before there was a diverse kind of third-party market for accounting conferences, and then Intuit kind of stepped in and created their own, and that just kind of took all the oxygen out of the room. Mm-hmm. And so I'd say the conference kind of channel kind of dried up, but at the same time, it's never that good in the first place. It was just something that was there. I'd say the market's changed in that now there's a much more widespread adoption of the cloud, which sounds obvious, but for a long time there, a big question was is the cloud secure? Where physically is my data stored? And one of these questions that just kind of signify a discomfort with the idea of cloud-hosted applications. And that's all gone away. No one cares about that. Everyone's like, yes, of course, the internet is amazing. Even Intuit has moved away from QuickBooks Desktop. They have basically kind of deprecated the entire tool. Everyone has finally gotten on board. The internet is here to stay. I think the industry has really shifted towards self-service. I think that we had a lot more demands for kind of a classic sales environment, probably the last time we talked. But it's interesting, even as we've grown our ability to kind of satisfy the customer that wants a classic sales experience, fewer and fewer of our actual customers even ask for it. That's really, I think, maybe as our self-service has gotten better, as the industry has matured, gotten more comfortable with the cloud, and just the whole thing is just everyone's just so much more familiar and comfortable with self-service. I'd say those are probably the biggest changes.
Now, you had talked about a slightly different financing strategy when we last spoke. How have you built the company since then?
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, we're profitable, and so we just put money in the bank every month. So we don't raise money. I don't think we've raised, actually, since we last talked. I would have to check the calendar. We raised some money early on, but ever since then, we've just grown through profit. And indeed, I would say probably the most interesting thing is I think Silicon Valley is just, they've forgotten what it means to be a profitable company, to be like a real business. Real businesses have access to capital in different ways, and we can take on debt because banks look at our recurring revenue and they're like, wow, this is an incredibly low risk lending. And so what we've been doing actually is taking our profit, leveraging it with debt, and then using that to actually do basically leveraged buyout of investors. And so the company has actually been not selling shares, it's been buying back shares consistently over the past several years. And then basically using the shares that the company repurchases to put them into the options pool, and then we distribute those to employees. And so the company has actually been very consistently essentially buying out former investors and then redistributing those shares through our options program to employees. But you can only even imagine something like that if you are steadily profitable. And that's why I think it's the kind of having a reliable, recurring, profitable revenue enables a whole new world versus a inconsistent profitability. Some companies will be like, we're profitable for a month, but then we do something and lose a ton of money. It's like, no, if you're confident that you're going to be consistently profitable forever, then you can start to make decisions based upon that and make bets based on that.
So you raised about $5 million, if I recall, at the time when we spoke, and you haven't raised since.
Oh, I think maybe we did one around 2014, maybe 2015. I can't remember the exact years. The years all kind of blur together. We did do a round for like another 5 or so. I think
pretty
sometime after that. Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, for a company of our scale, it's basically zero. Like everyone else is out there. Like, I never quite understood that. This idea that raising money is a sign of strength. I'd say like, no. Raising money is like chopping off your leg to sell it. It's the worst thing to do. It's the thing you do out of desperation. And so no, I think that we've raised a little bit because there were times in the early days when we were desperate, but we haven't been desperate for a very long time.
And what guidance can you provide us about your revenue range right now?
We don't share any of those numbers, but I would say we're very comfortably we have more customers than the sum of the rest of our industry combined. Now, that's a little misleading because Concur has their focus on much bigger customers than ours, so Concur is certainly bigger than us, but we're far and away bigger than everyone else, the sum of everyone else.
One of the trends that you haven't talked about that I'm noticing is the platform as a service trend. Salesforce, of course, did a very nice job of growing their platform, not just their app, the CRM app. They grew their platform, and they started that early on, and lots of companies got developed, lots of apps got developed, and their app exchange helped those companies, those startups connect with their customer base and so forth. They've built a tremendous developer ecosystem and have acquired from that developer ecosystem, and then big companies like Veeva came out of that. So to your point about building capital efficient software as a service companies, that's been a great strategy. Now, of late, other major SaaS companies are following that strategy. Atlassian has done a nice job. Twilio, Shopify, these are companies that are building very nice developer ecosystems and following exactly that playbook. My hypothesis, given how crowded the SaaS market is becoming, and just in MarTech, there are 10,000 companies.
Yeah.
So it's like, and there are, well over 200 companies with 100 million plus ARR. There are probably another 500 companies if you look at the 50 million plus ARR bucket. So it's, there are a lot of companies out there, and one of my observations, and I've had a lot of conversations with people in the industry, is that the ones that are going to get to the next level are going to be the ones that do a good job of developing a developer ecosystem, building a developer ecosystem, and doing the same strategy, the PaaS strategy. What is your thought on that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I kind of disagree with that. And I take issue with some of your examples. Now, I don't know. This is first. I don't know. I'll lead with I have no idea. But here's my instincts. So Salesforce, for example, certainly is really known for its platform and all of that. But I would be curious for a breakdown, actually, of their revenue. How much of their revenue comes from services they've built internally and are selling, like Salesforce, the CRM, and things like this, versus the ecosystem? And I would guess that probably most of it is actually they're just building products and selling them. And the ecosystem is probably very good from a marketing perspective and awareness perspective. It really cements themselves into companies. But I don't know, like if Salesforce didn't have that, are we certain it wouldn't still just be a giant powerhouse? I would say like Twilio is different because it doesn't have it's only a developer tool, so I think that's kind of a different thing. It doesn't have a mix of sort of developer tools and also end user products, so I think that's kind of maybe a different thing. Atlassian, yes, it has a developer ecosystem, but it sells tools to developers, and I would say it's I don't know that for example, I don't know that there's a ton of developers that contribute to their open source projects. Like Jira is a big deal, like it's open source, I think. But I would wager, like most open source projects, probably 99% of the code that's written is made by the company. Like maybe there's a halo effect to a degree, but I would wager that most of it is just kind of a classic company building and selling products. And in our industry, I think that I think Intuit has seen this. I think that again and again we've seen people try to make this platform where like, oh, okay, we're going to make this ecosystem, and then all these companies are going to contribute to this ecosystem. I just have never really seen it work. Like Intuit did a variety of things with like we're the first launch partner for the Intuit App Exchange or something like this, and then we were in this thing called what was it even called? I don't even know. We're built for a while. We were actually built into QuickBooks itself, and it just didn't matter. It just didn't generate leads to us. We didn't generate leads for them. It just didn't matter. Like we're the top partner for basically everyone in the accounting industry, and they don't really matter to us, and we don't really matter to them. And so I feel like everyone talks about the importance of these rich ecosystems. We've never seen any benefit from them, and we are the biggest player in every one of those ecosystems in our industries. And so maybe accounting is different, or, shocker, maybe it's all bullshit. Maybe actually the way that you make money is you make a great product and you sell it to customers and they pay you for it. And it's as simple as that.
So let me address the points that you've made. You've made a lot of points there. The first point is one of the most successful ecosystems where 30% of the app's revenues have gone to the company and has immensely added to the company's success is Apple, right? It's a platform ecosystem.
Oh, yeah. So, I completely agree. If you can monopolize a platform, absolutely. That's a very different world where you are a monopoly closed ecosystem. Yes, that works great there.
No, that's not the only one. I think Salesforce's actually, if you look at Salesforce's revenue, a huge amount has come from the ecosystem. And to understand that, all you need to do is look at companies like Viva, which was built for $4 million in financing on top of the Salesforce platform and has become a multi-billion-dollar public company. You need to look at Velocity, which did very well, went to $100 million plus in revenue and has been acquired by Salesforce lately. You need to look at companies like Aptus, which was also a very successful app in contract management, etc. So that Map Anything is another one that Salesforce has acquired. So that's another thing. Hang on, let me finish. This is one of the things that that is important to the companies that are using their developer ecosystem to build exit barriers and to expand the number of products built on their platform. So Atlassian's strategy has been they almost like outsource R&D to their developer ecosystem, and then when they see companies gaining traction, they acquire them. They've done numerous acquisitions of little bootstrap companies, little products built on that Jira Confluence ecosystem. So Atlassian has done very successfully on that strategy. Shopify has built a wonderful strategy, and they actually report how much money they're paying out to their developer ecosystem, by selling them to their customer base. Their main strategy is exit barrier. So Shopify is a little, e-commerce platform, and the amount of exit barrier they have created for their customers is because each customer uses 5 to 6 of their ecosystem partner applications. So I think your pushback may be because you have experienced a failure in trying to work with Intuit. By the way, Intuit is reconsidering all this right now. I've had conversations with Intuit. They would like to do a platform ecosystem, but so far you're right in that Intuit has not succeeded in building a very effective platform ecosystem, and that's a question mark that I don't really know what they've done so far that has failed and why they have failed, because it could be accounting. I don't know if it's because accounting is not a good place to do this. I don't know the answer to that question, but I think your blanket question that this doesn't work and this is all bullshit is not correct.
Well, okay, but let me defend my blanket statement that it's all bullshit. And I would say, you gave a lot of examples of how, for example, people have built businesses on top of Salesforce, and I don't disagree with that. I would say I would be curious if we look at actual Salesforce Inc.'s revenue, what fraction of their revenue has come from people licensing the platform versus people buying Salesforce products? Like what fraction of it comes through like a developer ecosystem, like for licensing the platform to build on top of it, versus just directly paying for products that Salesforce hosts on its own platform?
I think it's a combination. The strategy, all the examples that I gave you, it's all of those factors contribute to companies wanting to do a developer ecosystem. Number one is exit barrier. Cloud is very easy switching, very, very easy switching, right? If there are 10,000 more tech companies out there, imagine how much at risk you are for churn, right? Somebody else has a better solution, or you think has a better solution, you switch out. The only ones that are going to be able to rise above the noise and preserve their position are the ones who create exit barriers. So the Shopify example is very critical in that sense. And similarly, they're all trying to expand their product portfolio. So if you look at Salesforce's strategy, why is Salesforce acquiring Velocity? Why is Salesforce acquiring Map Anything? Because they're trying to expand their product footprint, and each of those are major revenue generators and are identified as potentially much bigger revenue generators because Salesforce now has to grow off a much bigger base.
Yeah, agreed.
And the other point, just a second, there's another point that I've had many conversations on this, which is why I'm pushing back so heavily into it, because I can't let you make these statements and create a false impression in the market. The other big issue is integration, merger integration. Why is it so easy for Atlassian to acquire a company that is built on their platform? Because there's no integration overhead, To bring in for a SaaS company to acquire another company that is not built on their stack is very tricky.
Okay, yeah, okay, so I would agree with that. So I think we might be saying kind of different things. I would say, yes, there are certainly multiple ecosystems out there that are successful. I think the most successful, to your point, is Apple's. If you can make a walled garden ecosystem and then take a huge tax out of it, well, yeah, that works super well. That's been demonstrated by Google. It's been demonstrated by Apple. It works great there. I think it's much harder to have an ecosystem where there are many competing ecosystems, like the Salesforce versus Atlassian ecosystems versus Intuit and so forth. That's a more mixed bag. I would say to look at someone like Shopify, certainly that is Shopify is different than Salesforce because, to my knowledge, Shopify doesn't actually sell anything directly to consumers. I think they're basically not a developer platform per se, but they're a platform for other businesses.
Yeah, it's a merchant. It's a SaaS platform for merchants to do e-commerce.
Yes, and so I would say, yes, Shopify's platform is successful because that's the only thing they do. The point I'm trying to make is that for companies that sell directly to consumers and also have a platform, the overwhelming majority of the revenue comes from the direct sale of the product. Like most of Apple's revenue is not the app revenue. Most of Google's revenue is not from Google Play. Most of Salesforce's revenue, I think, is actually not from licensing fees for their platform. No, you're right, absolutely, though. And maybe kind of shifting the topic over to advice for sort of entrepreneurs. If your strategy is to build a product and your intention is to get it acquired as soon as possible by someone else, building on top of someone else's ecosystem really helps that person acquire you. But
that is correct.
It also makes it very hard for someone else to acquire you that's not in that ecosystem. If you build in the zero thing, Salesforce is not going to acquire you, and vice versa.
That's correct.
It's a risky strategy to basically, before you even started, to basically say, like, there's only one door, and I'm betting everything on that one person. Like, my whole destiny is on this other person that I've never even met yet. Like, I would say that's a dangerous strategy.
It may be a dangerous strategy, but it's also very expensive to build a SaaS company. And
it's not, though. It's not. Like, I would say, like this. And let's talk about the biggest platform. Let's talk about AWS. And this is why I think so much of the market is just bullshit. I think that people will say things that are just objectively false, but everyone around them will nod. And I think most people, probably nearly all of your listeners, would say something like, "Oh yeah, AWS. Everyone agrees it is cheaper to use than running your own servers. You get it's faster, it's more efficient, and things like this." In our experience, and again, we're just one data point, every one of those has been objectively false. And like the cheapest you can possibly get a server from AWS, for example, is you commit to a 3-year contract and you prepay for the first year. And the cost of that first year is just slightly more than the actual cost of buying that actual hardware. Hardware which lasts for more than 3 years. Let's call it 5. So I would say probably the absolute cheapest you can get hardware from EC2, if you just go by the math of what it would take to buy the same hardware, it's roughly 5 times more expensive. And that's if you prepay for an entire year. In practice, especially as a small startup,
I work with formation stage companies all the time, right? 2 guys or 1 person and an outsourced team of developers are building these formation stage companies. So where do you want to spend your resources? The best place to spend your resources is what is differentiated. Going and competing against AWS is not a differentiated strategy. Where you want to, if you are trying to, build a B2B SaaS company in a, narrow niche domain of, let's say, supply chain, logistics, something, and that's what you bring to the table, it's better to abstract out the other layers, the lower layers, and focus your attention on building the logic that is going to give you the differentiated advantage on that layer. Which is why
I completely agree. If the argument is hardware is basically cheap and you can't go wrong, literally it's basically free. The technology of your platform is basically free. Then yes, I would say like AWS is basically free just like everything else. My point is comparing AWS to the alternatives. And I would say it's also like there are a million options.
My point is much more holistic, which is how to build a company. Building a company is expensive. Building a SaaS company is expensive. We haven't even started to talk about the sales channel and the cost of sales. So
I maintain it's not expensive. Okay, so we just agreed the hardware is free, right? Basically, regardless of how you do it, buy it, rent it, it's all basically free. So the next cost is people.
People are not free. Somebody has to put in the expertise to build all of those pieces.
I agree.
People are not
free.
People's expertise is not free.
I'm with you on there. And so if we rule out technology costs as basically being effectively zero, your main cost is people. And if you're, a brand new company, it's like, yes, if you're like a couple of engineers in the garage, starting your company's free. It's just you. It's your food. It's the ramen noodles. That's your cost. That's your hard cost. And I would say, and if you choose a very expensive acquisition model, well, then yes, you've made a choice that makes your company very expensive. That's true. If you choose a viral acquisition model, customers are also free. And so I'd say these are all choices. I think that so to say that it's expensive to run a business, I think is to mislead people, because that is to suggest that the only way to succeed is to make expensive decisions. I would say some of the best companies out there don't make expensive decisions, and it's actually very cheap to run.
But my point is, the reason these companies like Viva and Velocity did what they did and succeeded was they got access to Salesforce's customer base. And that's what allowed them to build companies very effectively and very cost effectively. And I
haven't talked to them. I don't know. We were the top app in the Salesforce App Exchange for expense management. Didn't matter at all. Didn't get me leads. Or maybe it would have been good if we didn't have anything else. But because we didn't bet in those channels, we developed a viral acquisition model that dwarfed the sum of every single store that we ever participated in. And so I would say, if you commit yourself to a single channel, then that just looks good. It's kind of the golden hammer fallacy. It's like, if you from day one say, my goal in life is I'm going to build on Salesforce, I'm going to talk to Salesforce customers, and eventually I'm going to get acquired by Salesforce, then you don't know any alternative. It's just whatever you do is. And yes, we can point to specific success cases, but that would be to ignore the thousands or tens of thousands of failures that took that exact same strategy. I think that we should be very selective about cherry picking things.
I think what you are reflecting on is something that has not worked for you. It sounds like the ecosystem strategy hasn't worked for you. You've tried it and hasn't worked for you. Something else, the viral strategy, has worked for you. I can give you millions of examples of where viral strategy has failed.
Absolutely.
Because viral strategy is very difficult to do.
Yep, and I think that's why the challenge is it's very hard to give advice to any entrepreneurs, because basically nothing works reliably. And what worked yesterday might not work today, or maybe worked for the first person in the industry, but it won't work for the second.
That's right.
And so I'd say the main thing
what we
is
do is
we
test different strategies, and we try to find one where there is a natural affinity, and the one that is working for a lot of people right now because of where we are in the evolution of the industry. With think about it, if you're a MarTech company with 10,000 other MarTech companies, you have to find a way to break through, and you have to find what leverage you can get from the market. Otherwise, you're going to just sit there and compete with 100 companies.
Yeah. So I'd be curious for your thoughts on something. I wonder, we talk about the industry as if there's always more opportunity, as if there's an infinite amount of new ideas. But actually, I question that. I would say,
saturation. Sure. No, absolutely.
Because at one point, I feel like we got into this rhythm where it's basically every 10 years there's this major platform change that changes everything. It's okay, we come out with mainframes. Okay, now there's PCs. Now there's internet. Now there's mobile, and now there's more mobile, and then more mobile. It's like we're kind of done. And I would say, basically, when you look at your phone, pretty much every app on your phone that you use was made in the past 10 years, or it was made probably about 10 years ago.
And you wouldn't start an Apple, iPhone app company today, because that's really saturated.
Oh yeah, but I would say literally everything that can be done with bits is being done by bits 10,000 times over. There is no first mover advantage. Now it's the 10,000 mover advantage. There's not we're not coming up with new use cases. We're not inventing new thumbs. Everything that can be done on a phone has been done on a phone 100 times over and is already saturated. It would be very hard to be an entrepreneur. This is maybe a demoralizing thing for me to say. I don't know how you'd start a company today, especially start one that's a big company.
There are companies starting. I will give you the vectors in which there are companies starting. One is location. There are lots of ecosystems that are underserved. You're sitting in San Francisco and Silicon Valley thinking about it from, the high-end ecosystem. There are there are ecosystems that operate on a very different price point. Something that costs $10 a month is unaffordable for certain ecosystems. You have to deliver that at 50 cents a month. That's an opportunity. It's a very different kind of opportunity, but it's an opportunity. So that's one vector, which is not saturated at all. Then there is another vector, which is all these different workflows in the B2B world. There's various niches and various kinds of AI configurations that are happening in that world. And so something that used to be a normal cloud app, if that becomes an AI-enabled cloud app, that's a variation, and there's all kinds of permutations and combinations of that we are seeing. So there are, all of those are possibilities. And then there are culture changes happening right now, right? So in the post-COVID world, there are culture changes happening. I just started writing a series. You can look it up on our blog on post-COVID startup ideas, and I've talked about ideas that are basically hinged on culture change and behavior change. I mean, this is behavior change of a level we've never seen before.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah,
in this really compressed time frame.
COVID has certainly upended a lot of things. In a way, I feel like it's kind of brought a 2030 level of sophistication to the 2020 marketplace.
Exactly.
Everyone suddenly is like, you have to figure out how to work from home. The idea
12 years worth of change in 12 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think that you're right. That has definitely changed things. When it comes to the platforms, though, I'd be curious if a major value of one of the platforms is reaching existing customers, but one of the major ways of starting a new business is to reach new customers that are currently underserved. Can you use like the Salesforce platform really to go after a market that is a 1/10 of the price point? Because it feels like they wouldn't already be in that environment and they couldn't afford that platform.
No, that may not be the right way to go after that particular opportunity, but if you're trying to AI enable a particular niche product, that may be perfectly doable on a platform like that. It depends on the platform, depends on the ecosystem. But from the point of view of the company that has, let's say, a $50 million or $100 million ARR business that needs to develop a moat around their business and go to the next level, I would say that ecosystem strategy is the only strategy.
That's interesting.
Think about it.
I don't know. I would say I don't think we really have ever seen any value in it. And I don't know that we would want to bank our future on that. Because I would say the best moat is just outgrowing everyone else. I would say the best moat is having better economics than everyone else in your industry. If you have a lower cost of customer acquisition and a higher ARPU, then you can just outbid everyone for everything.
If you talk to Shopify, they will have a completely different response to this question than what you do, because they had major competitors, and they did a fantastic job by using that moat to create a differentiated position and look at Shopify's market value. So I think it varies. Of course, opinions vary based on your own experience. So in your case, it sounds like your experience is negative around ecosystems, which is why you have a negative point of view. And by the way, this is a wonderful interview from a discussion point of view. It's an excellent discussion. So I'm actually thrilled to have this discussion with you in the context of an interview, because I think this would be great for readers to read the 2 points of views. But I've had lots of conversations, so I know lots of different perspectives. And Atlassian's perspective is obviously, they're basically using their ecosystem. They have numerous users. Numerous developers are using their ecosystem to outsource their R&D, and they're basically acquiring and acqui-hiring, and they're expanding their app base. So it's a strategy, and that strategy is clearly working from them. I'm an investor in Atlassian, and it's a wonderful investment.
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, clearly there are many strategies to win, especially, and probably there's maybe even a spectrum. The closer you are to a product that is being sold to engineers, the more a platform strategy will work. Like if you are like a Shopify, all they do is sell a platform, and so it works because that's the only thing they do. There's nothing to compare to.
But most of the SaaS companies out there are that. They do one thing, and they do one thing well, and they've put in a lot of money in building a channel, and but they cannot go from 100 million to 500 million with that one trick pony. So they need to build a bigger business, and they need more products. The sales force needs to sell more things. They need to increase the deal sizes, blah, 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 all of which actually are doable if you can make a platform strategy, developer ecosystem strategy work, which is very difficult to do. The developer ecosystem strategy, a well-done developer ecosystem strategy, is very difficult to do, which is why at this point, there are only a handful of them that are really working well.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And so I think, so what advice would you give to your sort of your users and readers in terms of would you advise them to try to build their own ecosystem, to try to join existing ecosystems, or what rubric could you apply? Because clearly, you can, on one axis, you can say everything works and also everything fails. Great. I sift through that.
I would, and I have to do this all the time, right? I'm constantly advising entrepreneurs. So it depends on which domain you are in and what are the options, right? If you're in an ecosystem that is compatible with an Atlassian ecosystem, I would definitely consider that because it is such an active strategy. From our ecosystem, we have sold a company to Qualys, knowing that Qualys has a very particular strategy where they are trying to buy companies in an acqui-hire mode that have specific center of gravity in India. So there is a location, geography angle to it, and so I do refer companies with that profile to Qualys to acquire if that's a fit and if my companies want to get acquired. Now, if you're in a domain where there is no platform ecosystem to plug into, then the question is moot. And that is the situation in a lot of domains. There is no platform ecosystem that you can go build on top of. So there's no advantage to gain by trying to look for a platform. So now you have to come up with a different strategy. Now, the other side, the flip side of the equation, which is another kind of work we do, which is why I have such insight into what's happening in the different larger companies trying to build ecosystems, is do you want to build an ecosystem? Do you not want to build an ecosystem? There, I would say, at this point, it's a very topical question that if you want a long-term moat, you should consider doing an ecosystem and kind of building that moat and building that. And there are a lot of companies in that position at the moment, trying to figure out how do they go to the next level, or how do they defend their position as they go from 100 million to 100 million to the next stage, 500 million, 1 billion. So that's where I think the ones that are going to be able to do a strong ecosystem strategy will have a very strong chance of success. Now, of course, you look at Documentum, for instance. This company doesn't need to do necessarily an ecosystem strategy because their core business is growing so fast, and COVID has accelerated that. And this whole business of having to do in-person signatures of physical copies, physical signatures and all that, this is just it's got so much momentum to just go away and give way to digital signatures. I think their core business is so strong, and there is only one real competition, which is EchoSign from Adobe. I would say this is not a priority for them.
That's interesting. Okay, so and maybe applying that framework, I would say, for something like Google, I think that for a very long time, I think Google they just had such a core search, such a core business model that was so strong in search and advertising for that they could have just rode that essentially forever, except probably mobile changed that because, or rather, being the default on the search engine becomes the most important thing. And so I think probably in order to defend their position, they have to take over mobile, and then they had to do a Chrome and so forth.
Right.
Kind of rambling a little bit here, but
and they had to do the Android ecosystem in response to the iPhone ecosystem.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think it's
they
very
have to do an app store,
that.
basically. They had to do that. Otherwise, they couldn't be on – the Android would not be as successful.
Yeah, but like up until mobile, Google didn't really need an ecosystem. There was no value to it.
That's right. They were a search advertising company that needed nothing except search advertising.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's true. I mean, I guess there's sort of an ecosystem of SEO firms and so forth. That's true. Well, I guess they don't make any money out of SEO.
So I think from a strategic planning point of view, you have to look at where you are. You have to look at where your market is. You have to look at what the competition is, and you know, what are the priorities and what are the market drivers. So it's not. I mean, yes, everything goes is fine. Everything works is fine. And nothing works is fine. Yes, but you have to make choices and you have to make decisions, and those are the factors that you use to drive that decision making, essentially.
Okay, so if you're advising a brand new entrepreneur, so would you suggest people like you can't start an ecosystem from day one? You were saying around the $100 million mark is where you think an ecosystem starts to make sense?
Yes, unless you have managed to do a viral platform. So, for example, there's a company called Able. That's an AI platform. So, repeat entrepreneur. The entrepreneur is Arijit, who was the CEO of Beyond Code that he sold to Salesforce, and then he started Able. It's an AI platform, and he's doing it as a platform company, which normally, unless you're a sophisticated entrepreneur, it is not recommended. Unless if you're a first-time entrepreneur with no track record and no experience, it's not recommended to do a platform company because platform companies tend to be more expensive to build, right? So, this is a company, or there's another one called Machinify. These are AI platform companies, and they're built starting as AI platform companies, and Machinify is following a strategy of going into different apps, different verticals, and so on. So these are entrepreneurs who are already platforms, you know, and they're all sophisticated entrepreneurs. These guys are going to probably want to do an ecosystem strategy sooner rather than later.
So there's basically, like, if you're doing a Shopify, for example, your entire business is predicated on being able to build an ecosystem. Whereas if you're like a direct product, like a DocuSign or something like this, or an Expensify.
Well, Shopify actually didn't start as an ecosystem. It started as a pure, you know, there were 5 or 6 e-commerce platform companies that were, you know, kind of going neck to neck, Shopify, BigCommerce, Volusion, and a bunch of others. And then Shopify pulled out. They were very well priced and they just did a good job on, as you say, the viral strategy, the customer acquisition, and so forth. But then they pulled out further because they were able to get the churn low. And the churn low, I think, is squarely because of the ecosystem strategy.
Interesting.
Because churn is very important for a company that is trying to spending so much money in acquiring these customers. They want the lifetime value of that customer. So keeping them, you know, exit barrier is really important.
So maybe one thing we haven't talked about here in this very long conversation is about what kind of business you want to have internally. And I would say one thing that's very nice about having a business that just sells directly to customers is it's so much more fun. Like, I'd say a problem, like most of the challenges we've had in like dark days are trying to deal with partners or investors or whatever. There's something to be said for the simplicity of like, we just make a great product, we sell it to customers, and we have a super awesome time doing it. And I think that, to your point, I think probably the best business model, if you can pull it off, is a viral business model, because then it has unlimited growth, it has perfect economics, and it also requires a very small core team.
There is no question. If you have a viral business model that sells itself and is direct to consumer, it is one of the best business models. There's no question about it. And those are the kinds of companies that VCs salivate over, but it's very,
yeah.
very difficult to find one.
Yeah, but I would say as a new entrepreneur, like if I were advising a new entrepreneur, I would say, like, there's so little certainty in life. And, banking your future happiness on some sort of the outcomes of someone else's decision is just it's going to be a hard slog. If you, like, participate in someone's ecosystem, you're trying to get people to join your ecosystem, or whatever it is, it's like you depend on so many people outside of your control. It's just not going to be very fun. Like, there's something real fun. I would definitely encourage anyone. It's like, if you have an idea for a viral business model, man, go for it.
But if you have an idea for a viral business model, how many viral business models are out there? There are a minuscule number of viral business models. Yeah. So you will sit there waiting for Godot and nothing will happen. So you may as well, back up. So that's not the way entrepreneurs think. Entrepreneurs are trying to build businesses, and they're trying to build businesses in different scales. There are people who are building $1 million business, and they're happy with building $1 million business. And as far as I'm concerned, because of what I've chosen to do, I respect those entrepreneurs as much as I respect people like you who are trying to build viral business models and scaling. So, what I mind is you're trying to extrapolate your experience and trying to tell people, go do that, but that is something that is such a low probability event that most people are going to fail at it.
Well, okay, well, let's dig into that a little bit. I was like, so yes, that's true. I am advising people to aim for the best things in life. It's like, hey, wouldn't it be great to be surrounded by awesome people that you love to work with, that you worked with for a long time, to have customers that are super bought in your brand, and it's so bought in that they're actually evangelizing the people around you. And so you have a profitable, sustainable business model. So when things like a global pandemic hits, like we haven't let anyone go. We didn't cut salaries. We didn't stop hiring. Everything just keeps on trucking. And so yes,
that's true about Amazon as well. Amazon keeps on growing.
Oh yeah, Amazon's yeah.
How many Amazons are there?
Yeah, I agree. And so, but let's take a path, or I would say I wouldn't discourage people.
Why would you discourage people? If you have something like that, great. Why would you discourage people? And frankly, if somebody has a viral business model, they don't need to be discouraged. They will see it.
Yeah.
They neither need to be discouraged nor need to be advised, because those kinds of businesses take off on their own.
Well, I mean, nothing. Virtually every business fails anyway. So, like, again, nothing works reliably. But definitely, if you're going to fail, might as well fail trying to do something fun.
But I beg to differ on that kind of negative point, because we're working with thousands and thousands of entrepreneurs, and they're each succeeding at their own levels, and some are failing, absolutely. But this point of view that everything has to be a $1 billion company, everything has to scale super fast, I beg to differ with that point of view.
Well,
dignity in having a livelihood, meeting customer needs, providing a product that is valued by maybe a small set of customers. So what? So fucking what?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great point, and I hope I'm not misrepresenting myself to suggest that the only businesses that matter are those that take over the world. I would say the businesses that matter are those that are satisfying to the employees, that make it a great place to work, and that keeps growing and satisfying their needs. And that can happen at a big or a small scale. I would just say it's way more fun having a world under your control than one where you depend upon the actions of others.
You always depend on the actions of others.
True. I guess that's a good point. I guess you can't escape that forever.
You cannot.
I would much rather depend upon the actions of my customers than the actions of my partners or my platform.
Yeah, so those are all, if a platform is working for you, I just talked to an entrepreneur in Romania, 30% of his business is coming from tying in with another e-commerce platform called Wix. Well, I can tell you, if you talk to that guy, he's going to give you a completely different point of view than the one that you're pushing, is you shouldn't depend on Wix. Because, hey, I'm getting 30% of my business through Wix. Why wouldn't I leverage that? This is a strategy. If a strategy, you test the strategy. If the strategy works, then you scale the strategy. What is wrong with that?
Well, again, it's not about right or wrong. I would say a diversified strategy that doesn't have
That's right, a diversified strategy, and then, figuring out which ones are working and putting more momentum on that. That's how you build a business.
Sure, yeah. So
great
anyway.
Great conversation.
So it sounds like, I don't know how to close, but like in my final thing to your listeners and entrepreneurs and readers.
Well, let me ask you the closing question, and you can tell
please.
me. So, this interview is positioned as a thought leaders in financial technology, FinTech interview, which we've gone way out of that core discussion. So, what do you see as in FinTech? Since you're not exactly deeply FinTech, but you must be observing FinTech. Where are the opportunities in FinTech, in your opinion? Is that a saturated field, in your opinion? Because this is very hot right now.
I would say everything's saturated. And so, yes, our field like as well. And as this term of FinTech, I think we like to label things to try to control them, but I don't know exactly what it means. Every business is a FinTech business in some way or another. Like, are you generating money? Like, everything has to involve the flow of money somehow. And so I would say, like, in our space, I know that there is, like, we see a lot of flash in the pan businesses that come about just because it seems like VCs kind of discover an old industry and throw gobs of money at a failed business model. Like, I think like the latest thing has been the whole explosion in sort of corporate cards. And like the big thing now is losing money at scale on corporate cards. Previously it's been like losing money at scale on other things. If there is no need for profitability, then yes, anything can lose money, and it can be hot so long as people are willing to lose money on it. What we haven't shown is that any of these fintech companies, like, well, not any, I would say like there are certainly very successful fintech companies out there that like generate positive cash flow and things like this. The vast majority of the hot fintech companies today are not generating positive cash flow. They're just hemorrhaging cash at scale. And so I find it very hard and sort of, what's the right word? I guess, I don't know, disruptive to sort of focus on just because someone is losing money at scale doesn't mean they're successful. Like the jury's still out on Uber. Like, is it going to go to zero? It might. It might actually be that this entire thing, this entire ride-sharing industry might have actually just been a big mistake and ends up to zero value in the end. It's possible.
Well,
no one knows.
That still doesn't mean that it hasn't, added value to the process, right? It has brought into existence, again, behavior change, right? This has been a huge behavior change that people do ride sharing. It was not part of society and it has,
Yeah. And so it could be that basically investors subsidized a whole bunch of public transportation. And like, that's cool. I mean, that's definitely interesting. Was that the most efficient way to do public transportation? I mean, it might have even been, actually. And maybe actually where this goes as we conclude, maybe public transportation should be paying for ride sharing because effectively it's just a money-losing proposition, perhaps.
Well,
because
I think the point that I think if we really played out this conversation that both of us would agree on is what is saturated is this incessant appetite for venture scale companies. There are too much money, too many funds. There are too many funds trying to put too much money to work, all of whom want to invest in billion-dollar companies. This is not a viable situation.
Yeah, and I think that so I mean, kind of going back to your question about sort of the hotness in fintech, nothing's changed. The world's not like when I launched Expensify in 2008. My tagline was Expensify, the corporate card for the masses. That was 2008. Now we're like in 2020, like, oh my God, corporate cards. Have you heard of them? I'm like, yeah, man, literally decades ago. Like, welcome to the party. But the economics of the corporate cards haven't changed. The technology behind them hasn't changed. Nothing's changed other than suddenly it's become there's a fad in the VC world. And that's changed. Now it turns out there's a lot of people that are willing to lose tremendous amount of money on something. And I guess that's a change in something, but it's certainly not a fintech change. It's just kind of an investor, fad change.
The place where the fintech world has opportunities is actually something I said earlier in geography, right? If you look at the emerging markets, for example, in Latin America, Mercado Libre, which is their version of Amazon, they have a payment product that is gaining some traction. So, all these, like the fluidity in digital payments is something that is gaining traction in these emerging markets, and there's behavior change that it's engineering. So Paytm in India, for instance, the whole Kenyan story of digital payments, micropayments, etc., all that has a completely different unit economics model. It's a completely different profitability path, all of that. But there are opportunities there to do disruptive things or even to do incremental things that add value and create value. So is that...
Well,
it has to be played out. It has to be explored. Huh?
So yes, I think that none of that involves new technology, though. It's basically existing use cases and existing technologies being perfected and distributed in new markets. Yeah, that's great. I think that's all amazing. And I think maybe
new technology is not a requirement, right?
Say that again, sorry?
New technology is not a requirement for entrepreneurship.
Agreed.
It's really how you go to market.
Yeah, we agree entirely on that. In fact, I would say technology is kind of the least important part of it. I think any engine or any startup that's laboring over, their hot new technology written in the latest language on the finest stack, whatever it is, like, dude, none of that shit matters. All of your creativity needs to be focused on customer acquisition because that's the only hard part of what you're going to do. Like, no one fails
new technology matters if you're writing the next database architecture, or if and there have been companies like that have been built on that principle. Like if you look at the Cassandra ecosystem with DataStax or MongoDB, these are heavy-duty new technology plays. So that's got its own bucket.
Yeah, but I would say, but yes, I would think when it comes to FinTech, at least, there is nothing new in FinTech. Every use case has been resolved forever ago. All of the technology that people are using has already been established. Like maybe cryptocurrency is kind of that, but that's not certainly new, and that's a whole different world, really.
That is a whole different world.
But like when it comes to FinTech, it's like the innovation that's happening here is not like now you can use a corporate card. Dude, there's been there forever. The innovation is consolidation of use cases into ever more powerful platforms that do more for you in a seamless fashion. It's not about new use cases. It's about the seamless integration of existing use cases. I think that's the future of FinTech.
Well, and the other thing that is, I think, in FinTech that is interesting is behavior change. I think technology is not the issue. The issue is, are people going to accept behavior change? I mean, COVID has been another massive behavior change inducers on the FinTech side. In India, for example, digital payments has gone through the roof in the COVID era. Again, it's that 12 weeks of change, 12 years of change in 12 weeks kind of scenario. Just the market adoption is happening at a pace that has never been seen before in some categories of FinTech.
Yeah, so I think that you're absolutely right in that the existing use cases and the existing technologies are being deployed faster and more broadly than ever, and that's an exciting change, certainly.
Yeah, and then I think you can wrap, those use cases. There's broader use cases, and then there is niche use cases. So I think one of the things that I like about people who are willing to work with smaller ideas is that you can take something that's out there, wrap additional domain knowledge or workflow elements to it, and cater to a niche market, and add value on top, and as a result extract returns on top of those kinds of niche use cases.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think that again, this I wouldn't say there's no intrinsic value to anything, depending upon your philosophy, but I would say I think the value that I care about is really what helps the people of the company live rich, have fun, save the world, like live good and rich and satisfying lives. And I think that you can do that as a one-person company. You can do that as a 1,000-person company. I would say the key is not to lose sight of what you're trying to do and to kill everyone in your company laboring for some sort of number on a spreadsheet, and then to have some sort of exit on paper that in fact just meant everyone lost money and wasted time. I think so long as I would encourage any entrepreneur to focus on, their family, on their friends, on the people they work with, on where they work and how they spend their time, and making sure it's all adding up to a rich life, because no number of serial entrepreneur successes is going to replace that hole deep within if you aren't living your life as it's tempting.
Right. That I agree with. And that's very much in the philosophy of 1Mby1M is that, excess is not a requirement for success, and it doesn't always, in fact, breed happiness at all.
Yeah.
All right. Well, great speaking with you.
Well, it's been a real pleasure, and we're going to have to talk again in another 6 years or so.
Okay. Take care. Bye.
All right. I see. Bye-bye.